I turned to speak to God about the world's despair, but to make bad matters worse, I found God wasn't there. That's Robert Frost, one of America's favorite poets. And I'm John Rafferty. I'm the president of the Secular Humanist Society of New York and an active and proud member of New York City Atheists. And this is Atheist History Week, and in which we discuss important events, birth dates or death dates or other important dates on March 24th in 1754, Joel Barlow was born in the United States, in what was then America, not the United States yet. And he's a man, let's talk about for a few minutes, because he's someone who deserves to be much better known in American history. He served as a chaplain during the Revolutionary War. He wrote an edition of the Book of Psalms, but he left the ministry and took up the law and wrote both political treatises and poetry, and was a member of the well-known, at that time, Hartford Wits, and wrote a book that lasted for a very long time as one of the most famous books in America, mock humorous poem called The Hasty Pudding. Barlow traveled to France and became a deist, and he entered government service as an attorney, and he was the counsel. He was a counsel to Algiers during the first administration, that is, the administration of George Washington, and he was responsible also. He became friends with Thomas Paine and was responsible for getting Paine's book, The Age of Reason, published during Paine's imprisonment in Paris. He later became the ambassador at Napoleon's court in 1811 and died in Poland while traveling to meet Napoleon during Napoleon's retreat from Moscow. But let's back up a little bit. The most important part of Joel Barlow's life, when he was consul, the American consul to the Bey of Algiers. And the Bey, something like a sultan, was basically a pirate. What he was doing was living off the proceeds of the pirates who worked the Mediterranean in the late 18th century and who preyed on merchant shipping, stole the ships, sold their cargoes, and put the sailors in slavery, actually sold slavery, American sailors into slavery. This during the first administration, the administration of George Washington. America was a brand new nation, a weak one. We had no navy to speak of. We couldn't actually challenge the pirates on whom the Bey of Algiers was making his fortune. So we negotiated with them. This all changed 15 years later when America was much stronger and we had a navy and an organization called the United States Marines, which settled the problem in the second decade of the 19th century with actions which have been memorialized in the phrase, "to the shores of Tripoli." But let's back up. In 1797, when America was still weak and we negotiated, Joel Barlow negotiated with the representatives of the Bey of Algiers and wrote a treaty, the Treaty of Tripoli. which was originally written in Arabic. Joel Barlow translated it into English. He signed it as the representative of the United States of America. And the most famous, in fact, the only famous clause in that entire treaty, which runs page after page after page, says, "The United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion." The Bey said that he could enslave American sailors because they were Christians, because America was a Christian nation, and therefore, as infidels, it was perfectly okay to enslave them. To get around this, Barlow had written that the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. Think about that. The screwballs on the Christian right in America today will continue to pound away at the idea that America was founded as a Christian nation and that its laws were based on biblical laws. That is nonsense. The founding fathers of America, the most famous of them, were for the most part deists. That treaty was written by Barlow as the representative of the United States. It was during the administration of George Washington. It was negotiated as part of the State Department was run by Thomas Jefferson, who would become the third president of the United States, and it was signed by John Adams when he took over from Washington as the second president of the United States. The treaty had to pass muster in the Senate. It was ratified by the Senate unanimously twice and became the law of the land in 1797. The United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, quote, unquote. I gotta take a break. But of course the religious right in this country will still insist that it's a Christian nation founded on biblical principles. Daniel Dennett, who was born on March 27, 1942, says, "It's time to halt this erosion of our constitutional principles and to take a stand. The United States is not a religious state. It is a secular state that tolerates all religions and, yes, all manner of non-religious ethical beliefs as well. It's amazing that 220 years later, we still have to make the same argument against the same know-nothings who would, if they could, and recently they've been able to, foist their opinions on the rest of us." Daniel C. Dennett was born in 1942, the son of a historian of the same name, who earned his BA in philosophy at Harvard and his doctorate in philosophy from Oxford. And he's been teaching at Tufts ever since, and his specialty is consciousness. He often writes about the philosophy of mind and of science, and among his many books, very important in free thought in America and the English-speaking world, are Darwin's Dangerous Idea, from 1995, Freedom Evolves in 2003 are the two best known of his works. He has he's endorsed the use of the word bright, by the way, to encompass the free thought society, atheists, agnostics, humanists, secular humanists, skeptics, rationalists, and there are now bright. I'm not crazy about the word. I've always thought if I announced to someone that I'm a bright, I'm opening myself up to being told, well, you look like a dim to me. So I'm not crazy about it. However, in endorsing the use of the word bright, he has said, the time has come for us brights to come out of the closet. What is a bright? A bright is a person with a naturalist as opposed to a supernaturalist worldview. We brights don't believe in ghosts or elves or the Easter Bunny or God. We disagree about many things. I can second that motion. And hold a variety of beliefs about morality, politics, and the meaning of life. But we share a disbelief in black magic and life after death. Whether we brights are in a minority, or as I am inclined to believe, he has also written, a silent majority, our deepest convictions are increasingly dismissed, belittled, and condemned by those in power, by politicians who go out of their way to invoke God and to stand self-righteously preening on what they call the side of the angels. But the kindly God, Dennett has written, who lovingly fashioned each and every one of us and sprinkled the sky with shining stars for our delight, that God is, like Santa Claus, a myth of childhood, not anything that a sane, undiluted adult could literally believe in. That God must either be turned into a symbol for something less concrete or abandoned altogether. Daniel C. Dennett, born March 27, 1942, very much still with us. I've seen him. I've heard him lecture. Guy's terrific. Pay attention to him. Read his books, Darwin's Dangerous Idea and Freedom Evolves. Dennett is one of what the media are calling the new atheists, but probably the most famous of all the new atheists is Richard Dawkins. Born across the pond in 1941 on March 26th. He's an evolutionary biologist and a champion of free thought. A graduate of Oxford, doctorate, assistant professor of zoology at the University of California at Berkeley in the late 60s, and a founder of New College in 1970. He is currently the Charles Simonyi Chair of Public Understanding of Science and he's elected a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature in 1997 at Oxford. His first book, The Selfish Gene, became an international bestseller, surprising everybody, including probably Dawkins. And then followed that up with the award-winning Blind Watchmaker, which has been translated into dozens of languages. He's also, other books include The Extended Phenotype, River Out of Eden, Climbing Mount Improbable, Unweaving the Rainbow, and A Devil's Chaplain. But his 2006 book, The God Delusion, is the one that has propelled Dawkins into the public consciousness as the new atheist, the leader of the new atheism. He describes himself as like a pit bull terrier being released into the ring against the creationists as a spectator sport to attack religious people, whom he calls the faith heads. And so he has been called Darwin's pit bull. He was named the Humanist of the Year in 1999, and he is the winner of the 1997 International Cosmos Prize, and has also won an Emperor Has No Clothes Award from the Freedom from Religion Foundation in 2001. One of his most controversial ideas, which most people say, oh, come on, Richard, is that bringing children up in a religion is equal to child abuse. However, he makes a couple of points. He wrote in 2001, "We deliberately set up and massively subsidize segregated faith schools, as if it were not enough that we fasten belief labels on babies at birth. These badges of mental apartheid are now reinforced and refreshed. In their separate schools, children are separately taught mutually incompatible beliefs. To fill a world with religion," he said, "or religions of the Abrahamic kind, is like littering the street with loaded guns. Do not be surprised if they are used." And he's got a point. September 11, 2001, was a turning point for Dawkins, just as it was for many of us. He wrote in Time to Stand Up, "My respect for the Abrahamic religions went up in the smoke and choking dust of September 11th. The last vestige of respect for the taboo disappeared as I watched the Day of Prayer in Washington Cathedral, where people of mutually incompatible faiths united in homage to the very force that caused the problem in the first place, religion. It is time for people of intellect, as opposed to people of faith, to stand up and say enough. Let our tribute to the dead be a new resolve, to respect people for what they individually think, rather than respect groups for what they were collectively brought up to believe." Richard Dawkins, born March 26, 1941. And by the way, Dawkins is very involved in a project that's running currently right now, the Atheist bus advertising.
Welcome back. Well, it's an advertising campaign like no other. 800 buses in the UK have been fitted with billboards preaching atheism.
The slogans have outraged religious groups and many passers-by, but some believe the idea is quite simply divine.
Imagine there's no heaven.
You don't see this every day. Public transport with a sermon for us all. There's probably no God, now stop worrying and enjoy your life. This atheist bus campaign is the genesis of comedy writer Ariane Shireen.
I'd like people to look at the buses and smile. I'd like them to brighten people's days on their way to work and just think, wow, that's unusual, you know. Maybe it'll make them think.
The ads even have the blessing of the world's most high-profile atheist, Richard Dawkins.
I would call it consciousness raising. Just think for yourself, that's all. Don't listen to what a priest tells you, don't listen to what a mullah tells you, don't listen to what a rabbi tells you, think for yourself.
But priests like Father Stephen Wang are praying they go away.
I might put a phrase slightly differently on the side. I might prefer to say, maybe there's a God, ... How would that change your life if there really was?
Love them or hate them, the buses are sparking an almighty debate in the streets.
London's a very multicultural sort of place. I don't think you really need to be talking about religion on buses, really. There's a lot of Muslims, a lot of people from all sort of religions that probably could take offence to it.
I know that my grandmother would be upset about it, so I'd rather not see it.
And the world will live as one.
And Ariane Shireen joins us now from London. Ariane, good morning to you. What inspired you to do this?
Hiya. Well, I saw an ad on a London bus last June which had a Bible quote on it and a website. And when I visited the website, it told me that all non-Christians were going to burn in hell for all eternity. And I thought, hang on a sec, that's a little bit strong for 2008. This is a very unscientific, unsubstantiated idea which could scare people. So I thought it'd be a really nice idea to put a positive counter advert out there, just saying the opposite. Just saying, don't worry, there's no evidence for this.
So the Bible itself was the genesis of an atheism campaign, which you hope will lead to an exodus from churches, hopefully. Is that the idea?
No. I mean, it was purely to reassure people who may have been scared by the original ad. It wasn't actually meant to try and convert people or anything like that. It was just reassuring people who might feel vulnerable.
Yeah, great.
Ariane, this is a big budget campaign, 800 buses. Who funded this?
Public donations from atheists and free thinkers. We only set out to raise £5,500 and we ended up raising, at the point that I'm speaking to you, £142,000.
Wow.
Goodness me.
Which is really phenomenal, yeah. Didn't expect that at all. And I wouldn't have set out to raise that much money, but we have done, and we've been able to run it throughout the country. We only wanted 30 buses. We've got 800 buses around the country. We've got 1,000 tube cards. It's all quite amazing.
It is an extraordinary coverage you've achieved there. A lot of support, obviously, but no doubt the backlash is going to be significant as well. What sort of feedback are you getting from the churches, and how strong has the criticism been from the public?
Well, the Methodist Church are all for it. They say that it'll encourage debate, which is a good thing. Most people have been quite understanding about it. They understand that it's a counter-response to these evangelical adverts, and they think it's a very gentle and philosophical advert. I'd say that 95% of the responses I've got by email have been very positive.
Yes, well, it is a very gentle commercial. The insertion of that word "probably" is really so wonderful. It's you know, it's calm, it's tempered, but it's really thought-provoking, isn't it?
Well, thanks a lot. That's what I was hoping. I mean, we can't say with all certainty that there is no God. Atheists wouldn't say that. But I think that it will reassure people who think, oh dear, you know, maybe something really bad is going to happen to me after the end of my life if I don't believe. And atheists just want to reassure people that no, we don't think that's going to happen. There's no scientific evidence for that. And hopefully it will encourage people to think more about what they believe and why.
And it's wonderful to know there are so many free thinkers out there. It's really pleasing in my mind. Australian atheists have tried unsuccessfully to do the same thing here, Ariane. Did you have any trouble getting this approved by your advertising board over there?
We didn't. I mean, I was so surprised because this all started in an article that I wrote for The Guardian newspaper website. The Guardian's a newspaper we have in the UK. And I just suggested the idea at the end as a positive solution. And people started saying, great, let's do it. How do we give you the money? And I thought, well, I don't know because I haven't researched this. I mean, can we actually do this? And people have been very, it's been very smooth the whole way through. The advertising company didn't have a problem with it. But sadly, the Atheist Federation, no, I'm going to get that wrong, the Atheist Foundation in Australia have really found it much more difficult. David Nichols, its president, was telling me that their slogan, your slogan was so cool, it was just atheism, sleep in on Sunday mornings. And presumably you don't want people to sleep in on Sunday mornings being sunrise, but it was such a kind of warm slogan. And I'm quite stunned that in a secular country which is very liberal, such as Australia, where you do have this wonderful freedom of speech, as we do here, that it wasn't allowed. But I think that's more your transport authority or advertising agency there being
I think it was the biggest advertising
the
agency in Australia that put the kibosh on it. So it was nothing official, but it was just difficult to get it approved by the agencies themselves. And look, Ariane, you know, inadvertently we are supporting the cause, obviously. Since Weekend Sunrise started on a Sunday morning, you know, church numbers around the country have been bleeding. They're down 60 or 70 people in some cities.
Priests all over the country are after Andrew.
Well, that's wonderful.
Anyway, Ariane Shireen, thank you very much for joining us on a very interesting campaign. Cheers.
Lovely to talk to you. Bye-bye.
Coming up, the week that was, plus
He's gotten the several atheist and humanist groups in London started. They got together and they bought a advertising space on the side of London buses and to promote atheism. And the bus ad against a beautiful blue sky clouds background had the words on it, "There's probably no God, so relax and enjoy your life." Dawkins got involved and started, when they started raising funds, the whole idea caught on very quickly. Dawkins, who objected very definitely to that word probably in there, probably is no God, nevertheless encouraged others to contribute by matching funds. The idea has caught on all over the world, in several cities in the United States, in Australia, in Italy that I know of, and a bunch of other countries. So Dawkins is active and working, and more power to him.
Whatever we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation, at least not just. We are also a Jewish nation, a Muslim nation, and a Buddhist nation, and a Hindu nation, and a nation of non-believers.